Hey you, thanks for stopping by. At last, we're back talking about my favorite show of all time. Now, the last two videos I did were basically me expanding on what's been presented in the show, the story it tells, the lessons it gives us to learn, and what certain things could mean for the future of the show. And there's still going to be a bit of of that last one in this video, but in the form of a theory. I haven't done one of these since late 2022, and it wasn't bad for my first U theory video. After all, it was something that I came up with from the ground up, but this time we're going to cover a theory that is actually already a very common headcanon belief among the fanbase. And as you know by the title and thumbnail, that's the belief that Joe killed his mother, Sandy. This is practically an unoriginal theory on my part. I mean, I do believe it, and I don't believe it because I heard it from somewhere. It's a conclusion I came to by simply watching the show, and I think the same can be said for pretty much everyone else that believes this. But the reason why I want to make a video about it is because I don't think anyone's ever actually explored the circumstances surrounding the murder of Sandy at length. The when, why, and how. So let's get straight into it. I'm going to start with the why in the form of two questions. Firstly, why do I think Joe killed his mother? The main reason is because Joe is very avoidant about the topic of his mother. In the present, he doesn't talk about her at all. In season 1, we get this brief inner thought of his where he says that expecting his parents to come back was a mistake, along with forgetting about Mooney. And in season 2, Love asks him if his mother is still around while he's in the cage, and I believe his answer was, put it this way, she was a saint, which, now that I'm thinking about it, could mean so many things. In fact, the word was sparks more questions than it gives us answers. Something that adds to that is in season 2, episode 8, titled Fear and Loathing in Beverly Hills, when they're at the hotel, there's this scene where Joe is in the bathtub hallucinating his mother, and the conversation was about killing people. She was teasing him with the idea that he wouldn't let Delilah go, but would actually kill her, and that she's probably already dead, which we learn later that she probably was, along with establishing that Joe was strongly considering killing 40, finding ways to get rid of him. What better person to imagine for that than someone he's already killed? One of the reasons that makes Joe hard to understand is that his intentions are sometimes up for debate. Some argue that he doesn't want someone to love, but that he wants someone to chase. Some argue that he can't love, only obsess over and control others. His mind works in a very foreign, complicated way, so we don't really know what he wants all the time or why he's doing the things that he does. And part of that involves doing one thing, putting us under the impression that it's meant for this as a result, but then he actually might be doing it for different reasons. It's avoidant behavior that leads to a lack of honesty. And I think that's what we were seeing in the scene that I just mentioned, Joe being avoidant. The thing we're missing is, why would he call someone that he killed a saint, or was he putting on a front for love? Perhaps that's something that we'll circle back to. But the second question for why is, of course, why did he kill his mother? This is going to be anecdotal on my part, but I don't think there's a part of Joe that resents his mother. I think there's a part of Joe that resents his mother, and that's apparent in season 3's flashback scenes. But we're shown in that same season that he overcomes that, and in fact, the lesson he learned from confronting his mother served him well in understanding why he had to leave Henry in more capable hands. So what I'm referring to is something that goes beyond Sandy getting mad at her son for shooting her husband and sending him away for it. And that's just Joe's perspective, or at least what it was at the time. We hear directly from her that it's because she was bad for Joe, not a good example for a child to look up to. In the aforementioned season 2 episode 8 scene, his mother comes across to Joe as very antagonistic. She's not motherly at all in those scenes. She's disturbing him almost, and later tries to comfort him as he's about to kill 40, which is the opposite of that side of her we get in a good chunk of the flashbacks that shows her as his comfort person, someone that he idolizes and embraces being around. So now question 2A would be, why does he view his mother in an antagonizing way? Naturally, one might think that it's because she moved on from him completely and went on to raise Jacob, and that's valid, but keep in mind, there was a time where we didn't have season 3. The people who believed this theory didn't always know about Jacob, and let's say the writers also didn't know they were going that route. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that as an adult, he views his mother as some kind of poison, the poison that made him who he is. The idea that something is wrong with him, that he was introduced to upon seeing his mother's reaction to him shooting his stepfather, never went away, despite what his mother said in season 3, because it was still prominent in his connections with others, mainly women, that things always go south, and that it started with her. Ultimately, I think it had something to do with the frustration of having to deal with that for the rest of his life, being his own common denominator, never being fully recognized and accepted at the same time, so much that not even his own mother could bear, as she moved on to start a new family, which still played a huge part, even if that's not all of it. So now that we know where his head was probably at, and maybe why he did it as a general idea, how did he do it? A factor in why a lot of us fans of the show believe he killed his mother is because Joel tends to imagine his murder victims in the way that he left them. He views Elijah with half his face bruised, as if he was pushed off a building, which he was, and that was the side he landed on. And Beck's ghost has strangulation marks on her neck, hinting at her gruesome death in the books, I'd imagine, because they didn't quite show her getting strangled in the show, but they did later have Joe demonstrate this when he snapped and tried doing this to 40. And for some strange reason, Sandy is depicted as wearing this dress or nightgown, and it looks drenched like she went for a swim in it, leading a lot of us to believe that this was the outfit Joe drowned her in. This leaves us with the final question of when he killed his mother. We have quite a few options with this one. Most of us think he's already done it. I mean, obviously, otherwise, if the bathtub scene was a metaphor, it will look completely different. So I guess the real question would be, did he do it when he was younger? Did he do it as an adult? Or somewhere in between? I'm personally banking on as a young adult. I don't think the young Joe that we see in seasons 2 and 3 is capable of drowning someone, especially not an adult who can fight back and easily overpower a kid. But I also don't think this is something that has happened somewhere during the time we've been introduced to Joe. I think this actually may have been pre-Candace, so young adult Joe, which would mean that this was also his first kill, because as far as we know for right now, that's Elijah. And even though I have no reason to believe it was any later than that, that's actually quite interesting. That would almost feel like a retcon, even though it's never explicitly stated that Elijah was his first kill. And the show doesn't really have a history of rewriting events or padding us with new significant information later on, besides informing us about his childhood, and of course. So I'm going to propose a different option. What if he actually does this after he kills Beck, before he leaves New York? But before we meddle in the many different possibilities, let's try to go this route with a new question. What do I think the story is? I think Joe finds himself crossing paths with his mother again at a low point. This could be after a series of unsuccessful near relationships. This could be after things don't go too well, after things blow over between he and Fiona, if they ever followed up with each other after her disappearance. And like I said, it could be after killing Beck, or maybe after he thinks he killed Candace. Since she's wearing something comfortable and near a bathtub, I'm guessing this happened in the comfort of her own home, a place where Joe has to be reminded that she's moved on from looking at her family photos that have everyone in them except for him, which then circles back to him having to self-reflect on what's wrong with him and what kind of person he must he be to be in this position where no one can truly see him, not even his mother. And in response to that, after so many years of going through it because of how he's been brought up, he takes this opportunity to make his mother pay the piper for his own actions that he blames her for, since after all, where would he be without his mother? That's about as far as I can go without writing an entirely separate story that isn't going to be in sync with what the writers have in mind. They'll probably include way more specific context. It might be an entirely separate plot that has less ties to what we already know, But given what we do have, that's what I think it will look like, or at least similarly. Now I'm going to answer some basic follow-up questions. Question number 1, do I think this murder is documented in any way? Honestly, I was going to say no, but now I'm going to say yes and no. I was going to say no and suggest that he disposed of her and that she went missing, because I feel like if her murder was on public record and just now discovered that Joe did it, that Love would at least know about that because she'd be able to look her up through Joe's court filings or something in the system from when he killed his stepfather. But then when you think about it, if she moved on and had another kid, she probably got remarried most likely, which means she wouldn't have the same last name, and that can be harder to trace. But then again, harder doesn't mean impossible. Maybe Love was able to figure it out, but asked Joe to test him, and him calling her a saint without explicitly answering whether or not she's still around could have been a way to throw her off his scent, letting her think something more along the lines of, I would never do that because she was perfect. Question number 2, does Joe hate his mother? Or does he still love her despite killing her? For this one, I'm going to say that at different points in his life, he's definitely felt a hatred towards her, but I think as he continued to grow and mature, that he ultimately does love her. Maybe he forgives her for everything. When he killed her, it was most likely in the center point of his fate for her, which he has been able to overcome with time. To give another example, does Joe hate Beck? It doesn't seem that way at all, in my opinion. In fact, he kind of celebrated her life after she died with the release of her book. So I think part of Joe was being kind of truthful when he called his mother a saint. Question number 3, where is Joe's mother in the books? And For You and Only You, the 4th book, Joe has basically no idea what his mother is up to or if she's even still alive. So basically the same as the show, except we know for certain that he's not directly tied to her current whereabouts. Maybe she just abandoned him and he let it stay that way. Last question, how do I think we'll come to find out about where things left off between Joe and his mother? I honestly think Kate will be the key to that. The keeping each other good mission that they share for one another, I'd imagine, also involves a need for honesty. And given how accepting she is of him, and how comfortable Joe is with her, what other character is there for him to admit his unspoken truth to? My personal theory for this is that it'll be I found the right person, but now the wrong person is me scenario. Now that he has everything he wants and who he wants, all he has left that is still torturing him is his unresolved trauma that has to do with his mother. So what if it starts as a series of dream sequences that wake him up in his sleep, that Beck hears, and then begins to explore, that Kate hears, and then begins to explore, except unlike Beck, she has all the resources she needs to come very close to the truth. And it's only him that can confirm what he, Kate, and the rest of us already know. That'll be very interesting. So yeah, that's my take on it. That's my outlook on the situation. Let me know your guys' thoughts, and let me know how you envision this playing out in the comment section down below. Thank you all for watching. Please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribing, and I'll see you guys all again next time. Goodbye.